Hi, good evening. Welcome to the Springford Area School District's board meeting for Monday, October 24th, 2022. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Springford Board of School Directors believes the community has the right to bring before the board issues and concerns they may have about items on the agenda or about items in general which affect the district or their children. Because of this belief and philosophy, the board will schedule a time at the beginning and conclusion of every meeting to have an opportunity for community members to share their concerns with the board. At the start of the meeting, members from the public may comment on agenda items only. The school board will move through the meeting agenda, then at the end, when prompted, there will be a time for public comment. This meeting is being filmed to be broadcast on community cable channels and online. Individuals attending to make public comment should be aware that they are being videotaped. Speakers will be asked to state their name and the area in which you reside before your comment.
All right, thank you and welcome. Mrs. Bickard, could you give us the attendance for this evening?
Yes, we have Mr. Schaefer is absent and all other board members are in person.
Thank you. Then moving on to announcements, there will be a special board meeting on Monday, October 31st at 5 p.m. at the district office. And then moving forward, is there public to be heard on agenda items only? Please approach the podium, state your name and what area which you reside.
Diana Kirsch, Royersford. Okay, regarding the Giza Project, it has been noted that some members of the board are comfortable that the Giza Project has been fully vetted and that all necessary due diligence has been performed. Therefore, questions by the public have been met with visible impatience by some members, and the assertion that because the plan has been discussed for some time, no further discussion is needed. In addition, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that there is some sort of penalty fee if this contract is not signed with JCI by the end of October. From my perspective, this looks as if the district has boxed itself into a corner and is showing all signs that it will barrel ahead with this project despite concern by the public. I have reviewed the audit report. First, I'd like to point out that the report itself states that the schools are all extremely well maintained. This is a reflection of the hard work of the facilities department under Mr. Hunter's leadership, which should be commended. The complimentary review also illustrates that while some capital investment in the infrastructure of the district is necessary, not all of the projects on the list are as emergent as is being described. For the purposes of time, I've identified the 4 highest cost projects. District-wide LED lighting project for $3.9 million. Window replacements at Limerick Elementary for $2.2 million, and unit ventilator replacements at Limerick Elementary and Royersford Elementary totaling $8.2 million. I have no objection to the LED project or the windows, as the payback on those is swift and measurable. However, I will note that JCI is not a window contractor. By managing this project for us, they are adding their management fee, which on a project of that scope is significant. The district could have contracted directly with a window installer and saved paying the markup. However, the planned HVAC projects at Limerick and Royersford totaling $8.2 million are exorbitant. The report states that the equipment is nearing the end of its useful life, yet does not provide exact ages for anything, and in many areas of the report, it is stated that the equipment is in good to fair condition. There is no detailed information on the chillers, their statuses or condition, and the annual energy data for both schools show no glaringly high energy costs, which would necessitate this level of HVAC spending. The better option would be to replace these ventilator units on a smaller scale, doing a group each year on an as-needed basis using money that was already earmarked for mechanical expenses. You can do this by replacing motors or other components as needed, ensuring filters are being replaced regularly and coils are being cleaned. These units generally perform very well, and all that has to be replaced are the components. You do not have to do a full tear-out and replacement of every single one of them. I would like to think that I don't need to point out to the board that it is in the interest of the Johnson Controls and other mechanical contractors of the world to get school districts such as ours to spend as much money as possible. Managing capital projects for school districts represents the highest profit margin in the mechanical industry. Their job is to make money for their business, period. If the board is pushing the signing of the contract in order to avoid this penalty fee, as much as I don't like it, I'd rather see us lose that fee than spend millions of dollars more than necessary. The ultimate message is that members of the board considering approval of this project should understand that you do so without the full support of the public. Thank you.
All right. If there are
Dr.
no-
Dr.
Yes.
I just feel it necessary to clarify, there's no such thing as penalty fees under the circumstances. JCI has a commitment with its subcontractors with regard to pricing that they could commit to through October 31st. So the suggestion that there's any sort of penalty phase within the contract is misguided. It's with regard to just commitment of the subs to the overall project.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to give an update, excuse me, on the property committee which was held October 13th. The first item for discussion after the minutes were accepted was the Giza contract discussion. We discussed the status of the proposed contract with Johnson Control. The committee recommended the contract be presented to the board for approval. One of the next items was the 567 HVAC project and the professional services that were needed to move that project forward. There was also a discussion regarding the used equipment. Ms. Zrozowski should be happy. The vehicle auction, we're looking to auction the equipment off by Geiger Auctions. The committee recommended proposal and equipment be presented to the board for approval. There was a lengthy presentation regarding Spring City planning. ICS, our engineering consultants, presented the work to date in the planning process and the options that are available for the district and the administration to review. The committee recommended this presentation go before the board for the upcoming meeting. Other business discussed was the school police and emergency management, projects and initiatives, fire drills, ALICE drills were completed and documented per safe school requirements. Provided traffic and security controls at all home football games, band events, and fall festivals. We were advised that Chief Board is also applying for a DCE grant to supplement current security projects. And there are 3 action items on the agenda for approval. And that completes my committee report.
Thank you. So, Mr. Jackson, for that. So that was property and finance?
No, that was property. I'm going to hit finance now, since you guys missed me.
We did.
Okay, let's move on. Finance Committee met on October 13th. The minutes were accepted and submitted as is. Items that were discussed were the monthly reports through September 30th. This included the revenue, expenditures, assessments, real estate transfer, tax revenue, the EIT revenue, the self-funded insurance, and the food service operations. Mr. Fink also gave an overview of the 2021 budget for the year, and that it's still in audit. Revenues are outperforming expectations, primarily due to the growth in the earned income tax and transfer revenues. Overall, the district performed better than budgeted by $2.4 million, subject to a final audit. There was a presentation presented by our consultant, Mr. Murray, from the district underwriter regarding the Giza Project. It was also noted that the contract was currently with Rothschild under review. There was also a discussion regarding Act 57 resolution. The board must adopt a resolution to allow the taxpayers to apply for a waiver of penalty and fees if they do not receive the initial tax bill. The resolution is on the agenda this month. We're going to effect July 1 of 2023. And that's it for the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any questions about property or finance? Then we'll move on to the Legislative Committee. Mrs. Deardorff?
We did not have a legislative committee meeting. The MCIU, the whole group, did not meet this month. However, we do plan on having a meeting on November 9th to debrief the upcoming election, and there's a legislative breakfast scheduled on April 28th. Most of the activity is focused on the election coming up in November 8th, so there isn't a ton of work getting done in Harrisburg. There are limited session days between now and Election Day. There was, the Senate met last week. Today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, both chambers are meeting, and then there's November 14th, 15th, and 16th. The House will meet, and the Senate will just meet on November 15th. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. All right, next would be the MCIU, and for that, we are meeting this Wednesday, so I don't have a report at this time. I'll have one the next time we meet. The PSBA, Mr. Schaefer is not here today, which takes me back to the Extracurricular Activities Committee. Mr. Schaefer is not here for that also, but Dr. G has agreed to share the minutes that she had taken from that meeting, so thank you very much for that.
Sure, I'll do my best. So the Extracurricular Committee meeting met on October 7th at 6:30. In attendance for the first time as the new athletic director was Dan Miscavige, as well as Chris Jennings, who represented the activities. We also had Dr. Jennifer Motzer as her first appearance for the committee as well, so we welcome them. There was no old business. In the area of new business, under sports, Dan did a very lengthy description and an accurate description of the 22-23 fall reports and shared all of that information with the committee. We also had a pretty lengthy discussion about the potential elimination of a second soccer team called the Blue Team. Basically, the reasons behind it were due to low enrollment and critical shortage of umpires or officials. We call them officials, I apologize. There was also an activity fee discussion based on a couple of phone calls that Mr. Miscavige had fielded regarding activity fees from parents. The next discussion we talked about a little bit was the additional coaches for track. So currently, our track team has over 240 students who are involved, and within that track and field, those games, there's 18 different types of activities or events. Our current staff includes 5 high school assistants, 5 high school assistants, 3 middle school assistants, and they're looking for a potential additional assistant at the middle school and an additional associate head coach for the high school. So adding on 2 additional coaching positions there to kind of cover the number of students there are per coach. Now, the positions would be in the ballpark of around 5,500 for varsity and 2,772 for the assistant position, if added. Under clubs and activities, Ms. Jennings did review the information on the marching band season. She discussed a little bit about music, how all of the rehearsals had begun. The band director, Seth Jones, was chosen for Band Director of the Year for the 2021-22 school year, so congratulations to him. As I reported out last week, the Velveteen Rabbit will be playing. Their auditions are 11-4 and 11-5. The WGI World Championship Winter Percussion Team was chosen, and the music department concert schedule is on the website. It's pretty lengthy, so it's on the Springfield website. For the next meeting, the actionable items include the additional coaching positions for track, and the next meeting is on January 3rd, 2023. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So are those coaching positions on this agenda to vote?
No.
Anyone? No. Next one. All right, thank you. I didn't think I had seen them, so didn't want to overlook that. Very nice. So moving on then to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I have a brief report this evening. First, Last month, we accepted the retirement of Mary Jo Evans, who is currently the administrative assistant at the 8th grade center. She spent time as an IA, a secretary, and a cafeteria aide, and she has been with the district for 34+ years. So congratulations to Mary Jo, and sorry I missed her last month. My second update, just so that we're aware, as we all know, Act 55. Act 55 has put some more school safety requirements in place. Today was an in-service day for our staff, and one of the components for our staff, or at least for a portion of our staff, was school safety training. Act 55 does require that every year we do 1 hour of in-person school safety training, and so required by the end of the 2022-2023 school year. Specific information, however, on what that training needed to include has not yet been provided. We just have to make sure we get it done by the end of the year. So special thanks goes out to our curriculum department and our Springford School Police. They provided updates today on situational awareness, ALICE drills and purpose, child line and mandated reporting, and upcoming grant requests. Today was one of either 2 or 3 trainings to be held, as we are required to reach 100% of our staff. That's my update, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much. Moving on then to the Solicitor's Report. Mr. Fitzgerald.
I have no report this evening.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, to the minutes. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
And we have a second. So any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are accepted. Moving on then to personnel, A through G. Is there a motion? And a second? Second. Any board discussion? Since there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion passes. We move on to finance, A through I.
Could you please separate H and I?
Separating H and I. Is there a motion to, I'm sorry, are we separating anything else out? Is there a motion to approve A through G? A second?
Second.
And second? Discussion on A through G. All right, since there's no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving on to H. Are we doing H and I separately or HI together? Nope, just H then, we're looking at?
That's fine.
Okay, so is there a motion?
So moved.
A second? Second. Board discussion on H.
No board discussion, but I need to make it abundantly clear that I am going to need to abstain from any vote that has to do with the issuance of securities, as my employer has required me to do so, given that I am licensed by FINRA and employed by one of the largest municipal money managers.
Thank you for letting us know, making us aware of that.
Well, I have discussion. We were almost out the door, but we're not, because I think we need some clarity for the board and for the public, specifically on H. And I guess in a more roundabout way, I think what our public was referring to earlier is not so much as a penalty, but whatever term we want to put on that, there will be a fee paid if we don't go forward with the project. We will have to pay back what we've spent with JCI, correct? In their, okay, can we get some clarity on that? Because I think it was more than we thought that it would be. I get that the subs, that money could change, although I did ask about that, and we don't know what that would be.
We do.
We do know what it would be. Okay, when I had asked, we didn't know what that would be. And at the same time, the bonds could be at risk because of the way that they're arranged at this time. There could be additional fees that way. So I knew that those two numbers, if we delayed it beyond the vote for Giza beyond October 31st, that we would be running into some possible concern that way. But we would still owe the money back to JCI for what we've spent. Okay, then.
JCI is a subcontractor. The engineering consultant is ICS. ICS provided this presentation, and the understanding of the board, and this is nothing new, was they've invested time, labor, into preparing this entire analysis for the district. And if it moved forward, there was no cost. If the board decided to go in a different direction, then their cost to date was, I think, $180,000 for that entire analysis that they did for the district and the assessments and all the documentation that was put forth. So that's where that cost is. There's no fee by definition.
Mr.
cost
Jackson,
for
can I
the
also,
services.
I'm sorry, can I also add on to that? We would be getting the design drawings for both Royersford Elementary mechanical HVAC upgrades as well as Limerick. So all the design work would be turned over to the district that we could use again at a later date for a project. So that's also what that $192,000 includes.
So all of that
What is that actual number, though? Because I think at the finance and property meetings, we weren't even near 180.
Yeah,
And now Mr. Hunter just said 192. So what is that?
I may have
number?
misspoke. Let me look it up.
The number, I think, was around 180, and that's the number that's always been presented to the board. What's getting lost here is, well, you're spending money on intellectual property. These are drawings that are signed and sealed that no one else can use. So if the board decides, okay, we don't want to move on with construction in 2023 arbitrarily, those documents are still applicable at a later date. So even if we didn't have ICS perform those architectural engineering services, someone would provide those services at a given point if and when the district decided to move forward. So that's cost that you would incur either way.
So it's in, Bob's going to check the number on that, but we think it's in and around 180. We would retain ownership of the architectural or the designs that have been done.
Yes,
for
that belong-
future use.
Yes.
And if we go the other route where we approve it by the 31st, then that 180 basically is absorbed into the cost of doing business and the project, correct?
Correct. Right.
Okay. And we knew there was going to be an additional cost for the subs, Mr. Rizzo, if,
That's correct. The round number is $200,000. If we don't approve by the pricing that we had for our subcontractors at the JCI, work extended to October 31st. As soon as we go into November, those prices go up $200,000.
okay, thank you.
Any other board discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second for Finance H. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 8-0.
Just the abstention for the record. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I apologize for that. So 7-0.
7-0.
Thank you. Moving on then to I, Finance I. Is there a motion? A second?
Second.
Board discussion.
Likewise, I separated this out because I have to abstain from this vote being registered with FINRA.
Any other board discussion on the bonds?
And just for the record, Ms. Herman has been very clear about this from the start. And I respect her ethics on that, and she's been real clear on that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And we appreciate what the background knowledge that you do bring to the board and to the committee. And thank you. All right, if there's no other board discussion, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So with one abstention, it passes 7-0. And we move on to property. property A through B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Board discussion? All right, no board discussion, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so the motion passes 8-0. Moving on to programming and curriculum A through E. Is there a motion? A second? Any board discussion? As there's no board discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So the motion passes 7-0. 8-0. Thank you. All right, moving on then to conferences and workshops A through E. Is there a motion? A second? Any board discussion? As there is no board discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 8-0. Moving on, we have other business, A and
A, B, and C.
A through C. Right, A through C. So is there a motion? A, B, and C. D are policies submitted for first reading. So it's A through C. So is there a second? Second. Any board discussion?
I've asked about this before, and maybe it's old age. How do we determine if a nurse attends an out-of-town trip or not? Is there a ceiling on it's 15 kids or 20 kids?
Right, I think the policies had changed in recent years regarding how nurses on trips, and so that it's much more this required.
I'd have to check if it's policy-driven. It may be student needs-driven under Section 504.
Because I look at B and there's no nurse required, excuse me, but then if I look at A, there's a nurse required. That's what prompted my question.
No, that's valid.
But it could be, as Mr. Solicitor stated, that it could be based on a 504. Just curious.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. All right, any other board discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 8-0. Then on D, the following policies were submitted for first reading, so we are not voting on those. So that takes us to board comment. Is there any board comment at this time?
I just want to give a shout out to everybody that came out for the homecoming this weekend and for all of the work that you guys did to make that float a reality. I was very happy with the school board float. It's been something I've been after for a long time, and it actually came to fruition. So heads up and fair warning next year for anybody who isn't physically on that float, we will have representation. So just a heads up.
Thank you. Any other board discussion?
I just wanted to say happy Diwali to those who are celebrating tonight.
Thank you for thinking of that.
And happy belated birthday to Dr. Wright.
Thank you very much for mentioning that here. And it's actually today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well, happy
chose to
birthday,
spend
Dr.
it
Wright.
with you guys, yes.
Threw us a curveball.
Thank you.
Hiding stuff over there.
So if that is the end of public comment, board comment, I'd like to move on to public to be heard on any item. Is there any public to be heard? All right. As there is no public to be heard at this time, is there a motion to adjourn? Second? Meeting adjourned.